Hey guys, welcome to the Dusty Wheel. I appreciate you showing up here for our second episode. I hope you enjoyed our first one, even though we had a technical difficulty or two. We'll try to work that out. But of course, make some comments on YouTube. We'll be following that. So if something shows up, just let us know. But I'm so excited to have you guys here. Again, coming back and being able to talk about another Amazon Prime announcement. I'm assuming all of you have heard it, but let's repeat it because it bears repeating. Lan Mandragoran has finally been cast, and now we know Daniel Henney is going to be taking his spot. I don't know if you guys have taken a moment to look him up, but before we introduce the panelists tonight, I want to tell you a little bit about him if you haven't. I know because there's going to be a lot of comparison tonight. I'm sure we're going to get into it with the panelists, and hopefully you'll call us because this show is in part about you and your voices. So Daniel is about, I think, almost 40 years old, which I guess from a comparison standpoint, Lan, I think he starts around 45. So that was nice. And I think he's 6'2", for those of you worried about his height. But more importantly, I don't know if you had a chance to kind of just get to know the man himself. I watched a little video of him today. It was really cool. He did some Q&A. It was a really great way to get to know him. He sounds pretty nerdy and geeky. He has kind of a childhood that a lot of us are familiar with. But of course, he also happens to be, I think he was a basketball star, if I'm correct. But anyway, enough about Daniel for the moment. I want to introduce our guest panelists, so you get to know them before we start taking some calls. So we have with us tonight, I guess I'll start at the top there. Drew, welcome to the show. Drew runs a podcast of his own, and I always count on him for kind of knowing all of the Wheel of Time facts. I'm counting on that, Drew, right?
Sounds good, Matt.
And next we have Tal. Tal, good to see you. I don't know if you realize this, but you are bringing opinions for every female Wheel of Time fan and Canada. and Canada. You're bringing... Okay, so maybe not that much weight.
And also every person of color. It's all good. I have a broad spectrum.
Excellent, but Canada, most importantly, I want to know what Canada thinks. So, and then Todd, welcome. You're covering everything east of Colorado. That's what your opinions stand for tonight. And Drew, you're everything Colorado to the west. Okay. Hey guys, thank you very much for showing back up.
I think I'm too country to go that far.
Well, you pick your spot, and I'm sure Drew will cover everything else for you. Well, before I give you my opinion about the casting, I really want to kind of hear yours. But Drew, before you kind of give us your first impressions, I want to remind everybody that this is a live call-in show. So please jump in. We'll move you into the call itself. Remember, the phone number is 1-313-TALK-WATT or 1-313-825-5968. And we'll probably have to screen those calls a little bit, but we'll get you in as soon as kind of we hear some of the opinions of the guest panelists tonight. So, yeah, Drew, why don't you start us off? What did you think? What was your initial take when you heard that Daniel Henney had been cast as Lan?
So I'm actually pretty excited about this. For one thing, I've had a little bit of experience seeing him in things before. My dad actually is a fan of Hawaii Five-0, so I've seen a couple of episodes that he was in, and then of course I saw him in the X-Men movie, and my impression there was that this is a guy who can really pull off the stone-faced attitude. He can do dour, and of course he can handle some action scenes. He's a big guy. He's pretty muscular. If you see some of the photos floating around.
Hear yours, but before you kind of give us your. Oh. Sorry, we heard something there.
That was me. Sorry.
Yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
But yeah. I think that they were always going to cast an Eastern Asian actor. I think that's definitely the idea that. Sorry, a dog just came in the door here.
Yeah, remember everyone who's watching. This is the fun part about live TV, right?
Yeah,
you'll get dogs and children crying or something in the background.
Or dogs crying, as it were.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I always expected that they were going to make at least the Shi'anaran and Malkieri characters Eastern Asian, and so with Lan, I think that was the expectation.
Okay.
And I'd heard of some kind of fun ideas, around. I know Ken Watanabe was one that was tossed around a lot in like fan casting options and stuff.
Yeah.
But I think Daniel Henney's a really good choice.
Yeah, I mean that's you brought up an interesting point. He definitely has a lot of acting chops. Obviously Criminal Minds. I think he started his career, I want to say, in modeling, which might come into this discussion, I believe. What did you think, Tal, when you saw Daniel? What was your first thought when you heard he was cast? You're muted.
Oh, damn. So my exact words were, he's hot, which is always a bonus. I'm excited to see an actor of East Asian descent. I think this is the perfect place to slot that kind of diversity in really seamlessly. I'm super excited to see that he used to play high-level basketball, because it shows me, at least, that there's going to be a real physicality to him as an actor, which will make sort of the physicality of the role in the series a lot easier to swallow.
Sure.
Horseback riding is going to be a key lesson for this guy if he doesn't have it already on his resume under other skills.
Yeah.
And I'm excited to see him and Rosamund together.
Yeah. I mean, it's something you can almost imagine right now in your head. But it's going to be a totally different experience when we see him on screen. And I think a lot of people, I mean, I think he's a very good-looking man. I think that's going to be shared, that opinion. And that's going to come up when I want to kind of break down reactions that I've seen from fans out there. That's one piece that I want to come back to, which is, and I don't want to answer this question yet, but is he too pretty? We have to ask that question. I like that answer. Todd, what was your reaction? It sounds like so far there's been pretty positive reactions towards this casting. Are you feeling the same way? Was that what you felt like he worked in?
Yeah, look, I was all in for Donnie Yen. That was my guy. This is good. I mean, they went along the same run. I didn't really know too much about him. I looked him up, and I think he can handle it. I think he's going to be a good choice.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think then this is a good. I'll give you my reaction. And by the way, for those of you who might have just jumped in and you're watching this right now, please do feel free to call in. We want to hear your opinions. Maybe you loved it. Maybe you hated it. Maybe you're kind of in the middle road. We want to hear those. Again, that's 1-313-825-5968. That's 1-313-825-5968. Make sure you give us a call. And let me give you my reaction. I think I had seen, just like Drew, you had mentioned we've done a lot of these fantasy castings. And I think I had seen, like you said, Ken Watanabe. I don't know if I pronounced that right.
Yeah.
Watanabe. Thank you.
Watanabe.
I think I'd seen him, and so maybe I was just kind of. It kind of seemed like, this like fits. Maybe it seems younger. So let's get to that. Let's get to Lan and some of the, the key pieces of, how he was described, what he looks like, and break these down. One of the things I noted when I kind of looked this up was they did mention that Lan has an unlined face. Now it also talks about he's like weathered or worn. I can't remember the exact phrasing there, but
you can't be both.
But it says weathered. I mean, it says unlined. So what do you think from a? Okay, so and I know we have gray at the temples. I know that exists. So what do you think it is then that they can do? I mean, they're not going to, if they went with the unlined face, they don't need to make him old looking, but how are they going to give him that worn effect? Because he does, right? He's coming across, the guy's, he's a really good looking guy, and he almost seems younger than his age, which I think, like I said, is about 39. How are they going to bring that to bear? Because that seems like an important piece to Lan, like he's experienced, he's grizzled in some ways.
I don't think that's going to be that hard. He's, it's not really that hard to put a little bit of age on somebody, especially when they're a good enough actor to pull off the age. You know what I mean? So I don't think that's going to be that hard. Some hair and a Hadori, and I think he's in.
Okay. Hey, by the way, you might see the camera go out here just for a couple of maybe like less than a minute. We're just doing a little swap on the camera, so you should still hear us, but the camera view might here go away. But let's keep speaking about that.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of aging up, it's nothing that a little white paint on his temples by a really good hair stylist is gonna fix. Like, it'll be fine. And frankly, he's got that beautiful resting bitch face that I think is really key for Lan.
Yep.
And I'll admit, like, I haven't seen him in any of his other works, and so I'm coming into this really fresh to him as a face rather than as an actor. But I'm also really excited by the fact that he has worked in network series TV, because it's a different beast than movies, as it were, in terms of production schedules and styles of acting. And TV is a grind.
Right.
You know, they're long days, they're tight schedules. And the fact that he's got that knowledge from working on Hawaii Five-0 under his belt and Criminal Minds, I think I saw in his IMDb, leads me to think that he'll be a good leader and model for a lot of the younger cast who have not worked in TV or anything other than stage, for a couple of them.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. I think, and Rafe mentioned that he's out there. He's like, I think he mentioned on Twitter that he's there, right? He's in Prague right now, and how cool it is to have him there on set. And so I wonder if that's coming to bear some of his experience, like you're saying, in that way for this younger cast. It's not that they haven't been. I mean, I think Zoe, I don't know how long she's been in the Power Rangers, but a lot of these individuals do have a lot of screen time. But surely his experience will help in that way. I mean, is he? Does anyone feel like I saw one of the complaints? I don't know if it's a complaint versus just concern. Is he too young for this role?
I mean, who's to say too young? Like, it's so arbitrary. And I mean, frankly, Lucy Liu could pass for 35, and she's in her 50s. Like, actors of East Asian backgrounds. Age is a tricky thing because it's so subjective, and you know, give the guy a tan, give him some gray hair at his temples, and I think we're okay.
Okay, but is there anything that, you know, that young? In other words, he comes in pretty to the series. He has that gravitas of his age and experience, and that was the only piece that it kind of makes me wonder there, and how that, again, maybe just with makeup. And I think somebody mentioned this on Twitter today. You know, a couple weeks on set, and he'll look a little bit more worn than some really nice picture, you know, taken for a photo shoot. But there's that question, I think, and I think it's not something that's going to ruin it for anyone, I doubt. And I think new viewers that haven't actually been, you know, maybe reading all the books or haven't really cared to pay too much attention, it won't be important to them. But and that is one thing I'll be watching for, which is, you know, can he pull off that kind of experience when he comes into this, you know, into Edmonds Field, for example, and you know, the respect that. I think he can, but it'll be interesting to see if they try to, like they said, wear him down a little bit from that pretty too young feel that some people at least complained that he had.
Well, and put him beside Rosamund Pike. Put him beside the actress who's playing Nynaeve. Suddenly, he doesn't look that young.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and what's yeah? Sorry, go ahead, Tom.
Oh, I was just agreeing. I mean, he's going to be world weary, as somebody said in the chat, world weary. He's going to be that anyways, just because of what he's gone through so far before they even get to Edmondsfield.
Yeah, and I wonder if some of that's going to be carried in his stony-faced looks, right? Mm-hmm. His expressionlessness, and maybe if he, you know, that'll be an interesting thing for us to find out, maybe from interviews he does or from communication that we have somehow through the producers of the show, whether or not he how much of the material he's going to consume. Like I do wonder how much of the books each one of these cast members will end up reading, and how much they'll try to embody, these descriptions, or if they'll stick more to the way the producers are saying, like, okay, this person has, these whatever, and be it this way, or if they'll actually kind of invest, kind of buy in. I know Rosamund Pike, it looks like she is a, I don't know, at least the picture of her with the book, I can't remember if she's actually read them or not. But, I do, would that bother you to find out that the cast members don't read the books?
No.
It wouldn't bother me, I don't think. I do believe Rosamund Pike has at least read some of them. And I think the guy who's playing Rand also has. He at least posted a photo, soon after he was cast, with a very worn copy of Eye of the World. Okay. But an interesting thing, we're talking about the possibility of this guy to pull off Land's sort of gravitas, and if he can sort of dominate a scene. And I'm not entirely certain he's going to need to do that, at least early on, because if you go back and you look at some of the scenes in The Eye of the World, Lan is actually hidden a lot of the time. It's Moiraine who dominates the scenes. And Lan sort of comes out of nowhere. Moiraine will finish talking and walk off, and then everybody kind of realizes Lan was there all along, but forgot about it.
Right.
And so he doesn't really get. Rosamund Pike can, carry herself in that way. I think, Daniel Henney. I think he'll be a perfect complement to that. Just kind of standing and brooding in the corner.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's an interesting point, that he's not really holding the scene the entire time, right? It's in those moments. Yeah, that's a really well put point on that question, which is it's less that he has to carry it and more that, like you said, he comes out of nowhere many times, and that stony faced expression, his, it's almost the lack of amount of communication he does that I think lends, that he doesn't just communicate through his face, right? A lot of his communication is just through his body in itself, and that might, I wonder how much of that will be a challenge for Daniel, right? Like, this is not I don't know the scripts, but Lan has never struck me as having a lot of dialogue, you know what I mean? Like, there are obviously parts to it, but nothing like Moiraine. He's not
really out front until they get to the Borderlands. That's right. Kind of when he really starts to stand out.
Yeah.
So tell me, on the actual look, back to his look a bit, and they mentioned this about Perrin, and a lot of people kind of just wrote it off, like they'll figure it out. But Lan does, like, one of the descriptions that they talk about is that he is heavily muscled, and more so than Rand. His shoulders aren't as broad, I think they say, but he is more heavily muscled. So there is that an important piece to you three when it comes to, Lan being imposing when he is seen? Or do you think that's just because a lot of people wrote this off with Perrin, like, oh, whatever. There were a lot of people going back and forth between this idea of, well, he has lean muscle. I've seen blacksmiths and they're not as big, but then other people are saying, no, they're really heavily muscled. Of course they would be. And this is a case where it does talk about his size being imposing, right? He was supposed to be 6'5"? That's the size, at least in the book. So I think his size is, when he comes out of the shadows.
Drew, is he that tall?
Yeah, he's as tall as Rand. And Rand's like 6'5", 6'6".
Yeah, I think he was just, I think, like an inch shorter than Rand. Now, of course, the actor that they picked for Rand is a bit shorter. I think he's 6'1", 6'2", or something like that. So,
yeah,
it's relative.
Right.
Yeah,
exactly.
So the relative comparison there will be interesting. But this question of, do they need to really build him up as this imposing kind of muscular person? I think yeah, go ahead.
Looking imposing is more than just being a big dude. Sure. And so that's where I go back to his basketball physicality. So I don't know what he played, but athletes are able to communicate a lot in terms of being imposing. on a court with their bodies. I'm not remotely fussed about his ability to sort of embody the character physically.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Well, so this kind of goes back to especially his work in the X-Men movie. The character he plays does a lot of that sort of like brooding in the background and has a threatening demeanor. And I think that it's that body language, it's that demeanor rather than necessarily the size that he needs. And I really think he's got it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's
when I looked back at some of the clips from the Wolverine, the Origins, and he was toe to toe, and he had that look on his face like it is what it is, and I'm not scared of you, and that's kind of the way I think Lan looks quite a bit,
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. By the way, let's cut up. Sorry, take a break for a second. Definitely give us a call if you disagree with our opinions here. Or if you agree with them, we still like to hear from you. Kind of curious what you think about Lan. Does he have to be heavily muscled or not? Remember, call that number with 1-313-825-5968. It's 1-313-TALK-WATT. Give us a call. We'd love to hear from you. Yeah, I back to that question. I still would like to see them. I would like to see them at least push for that. And I have seen some pictures, I guess, of Daniel where. I think he's from a physique standpoint, he absolutely can be there. It was one of these things with a parent. I absolutely agree too, which I hope that they're doing some work from a physical standpoint to approximate not the opinions we have from having read the books, but the in canon related kind of questions of the work they've chosen to do and the things that are made a big deal of. I mean, because the in Game of Thrones, you have the mountain. Size is imposing, right? It's not the only imposing thing, right? But it is imposing, and so for me, I'd like to see them do it. It's not that I'm saying they've screwed up in the casting, but I would like to see him push for him to kind of to have that, characteristic in the actual show.
Yeah, see, that's interesting, Matt, because honestly, that's the least important thing to me in terms of the character of Lan as Lan.
Why do you say that? When you say that, why?
Because physicality, like a short guy can be really imposing. Sure. A tall guy can be really self-effacing. It's less about sort of their physical appearance and more about his physicality as an actor. But to my original point, Lan is taciturn. Lan is serious. Lan is constantly thinking that everybody around him isn't taking things as seriously as they ought to be, as he himself is. Sure. He's sort of put upon on all sides in the whole first book. Really, it's, oh God, Maureen, like, really, we're taking these kids into the Blight.
Yeah.
And so it's more that walk of a line between taciturn and like sarcastic old guy that I'm looking for.
Yeah, so no, I hear what you're saying there. That piece of it is true, which is, sure, you can have an imposing person. I mean, my wife is 5 foot tall, and she can be very imposing. She can be very imposing, right?
I'm scared of Terry.
And Moraine, obviously, they talk about the fact that she. I guess in this case, Rosamund's a little bit taller, but Moraine was also, like, her small stature did not affect people's impression of that piece. But that being said, I mean, going back to Perrin, obviously you're going to expect that this kid, who's this blacksmith, is going to kind of have some physical characteristics that would lead you to believe that, at least believe in that idea about him, right? I mean, if this makes sense, you're not going to believe that Lan is some amazing warrior, out there, if he didn't look the part. Now, I'm not saying he has to be extremely heavy muscled to look the part. A lot of people, I guess we do see warders that don't necessarily look the part, but they end up being
lots of them. Like, there are fat warders.
That's true. But but Lan wasn't supposed to be one of those, and he's not.
No,
right? The character's not. But this is the point. This is the point. You're saying there are fat warders, but they didn't make him a fat warder. And why didn't they make him a fat warder?
Well, because he's a lead character and he's supposed to be hot. That's how literature works.
Okay, that's true. But they didn't, because that isn't the character either, right? They're not going to go and change Rand to, you know, not have red hair, right? There are some key things, and you're saying that, you know, and it seems like a lot of you are saying that that doesn't matter, but I guess for me it will matter a little bit. I'm not saying it's the most important thing, but it's going to matter. So,
like, his backstory matters more to me than his physical appearance.
Sure.
If I'm having to pick.
Okay, well, to that point, does he have to have cold blue eyes?
No.
If they can do it, do you want them to do it?
No.
Yes.
Yes and no's. Okay, why yes? Drew, did you say yes first? I didn't catch that.
So for me, I don't need him to have cold blue eyes,
Okay.
as long as he has a hard stare, which I think the guy does. But I mean, if they want to give him blue contact lenses and he can handle it, because I know sometimes, like, you know, contact lenses can cause actors problems. But if they can do it, why not?
Sure.
So,
Okay.
and I'm landing on the no side for the record. I'm doing it before Todd jumps in here because he said yes. You lose something. To Drew's point, contact lenses can be a real colossal pain in the ass for the actor.
Sure.
And I don't want to lose anything from the eyes. So I would rather, like Drew, have a good hard stare than care about what color his eyes are. If they're blue, great. If they're not blue, I it's irrelevant to me.
Okay.
Yeah.
See, I like the idea of the blue eyes because it makes him more of a badass. You know, I mean, that stone cold, deep down, staring right through you kind of look that he's supposed to have.
Yeah, I mean, this goes to a larger question, and a lot of fans, you know, we're not going to jump all the way to this particular discussion I'm bringing up, but it's something I want to maybe eventually get here as the call continues, which is, you know, how much do you have to hew towards, you know, the character having those attributes that the books say, not headcanon. I'm not talking about people who read something and had the wrong impression. I'm saying how do you make that decision, you know? Like the blue eyes, like, when does it become important? Do they have to mention it?
It's not important.
Yeah, but see, am I going to be pissed off that he doesn't have blue eyes? No. Will it make a better character? Yeah, I think it will. I think it'll feed into the canon better.
Yeah, so I mean, I think the canon's important. If they've made a physical attribute a really key portion of that person, I think it's important. It's not that it has to be.
Okay, well then are we getting boob jobs for the rest of them?
Do you find you're saying because Jordan mentioned them so much that they all have to match?
It's irrelevant. It's not like you're gonna see a person and he's gonna take on the character.
And that's
only
why
with
I said
Rizal and Seleucia.
What, Drew?
Only with Rizal and Seleucia.
Yeah,
Other than
right.
that, I don't care.
But that's
why.
So
but
that's
why I said
on those things, you know.
You know, that's why I said, is it going to ruin it for me? No, it's not going to ruin it for me. Do I think it would be better? Yeah, I think it would be better. There's the cold, blue-eyed stare. That comes up a lot, you know.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's that it's the question of what comes up a lot, right? Rand being red-haired is important. Now, I get that. I get the blue eye thing is not in comparison. I'm not trying to equate them. I'm saying that it is something that they bring up a lot. So I don't want to yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, again, I know that there's an importance in terms of him resembling the Aiel, and that when they physically see other Aiel, they're able to put two and two together, and that's why the red hair is important. But fundamentally, it's not that important. His hair color nothing turns on his hair color. He can still have the backstory he has without having red hair.
Sure. In this case, yeah, nothing is going to. Land's blue eyes aren't going to necessarily change anything. But in this case where they can do it, I think they should. You know what I mean? Like in the end, they can do it. So why not do it in that case? But you're right. It doesn't ruin it for me.
Because Asian people don't have blue eyes.
But this isn't. But Jordan's thing was never. To me, he never meant for this to be like an exact, like this culture is this exact culture from an appearance standpoint and everything else. Sometimes he would say like, this is who I had in mind, but he likes flipping things around. And actually in the books, they talk about people that have eye color that that is not like maybe a typical genetic, what we would consider typical. And in this case, I think that it to the actual character himself. Again, it's one of those. Can they do it? If they can, should they do it? In other words, Perrin, they should have him in a gym. Like, why wouldn't they? Making it more believable is what they should be after, and hopefully they are. They're beginning production.
Yeah, they are.
So yeah, I doubt they're not. It's just one of those things that I guess from a fan perspective, you kind of wonder. Now, this is a funny thing.
After that was announced, Sarah Nakamura tweeted out because so many people were worried about Perrin's size. She tweeted out and she said, "Yeah, don't worry about it. He's hitting the gym hard." So I imagine they're having Daniel Henney here do the same thing. So
yeah.
But I also don't. I mean, talking about Perrin and Lan, they're a different kind of muscle. You know what I mean? There's a fighter muscle, and then there's a working muscle, and so it's going to be a different kind of look, I think. In my mind, it would be. I know they can't necessarily do that because he's not a blacksmith, obviously, but they're going to have a different kind of look.
Yeah, there's something that came up online. I don't know. I saw it as I was clicking around. There was this impression that Lan was going to have a beard the entire time, and I was like, why is Lan? Why they? And I literally went and started searching, like, did I just miss something in all of my reading? And he had to have a beard. And I can't tell if it's from, like, on the Eye of the World book cover, doesn't he look like he has a beard on that cover? I swear. Maybe I'm forgetting that, but
I've never looked that closely.
Yeah, but Maureen has pointy ears, okay? So, like...
No, I'm not saying the books actually say. I'm wondering if whoever brought this up kind of saw the cover and was like, well, he's supposed to have a beard. Anyways, it's a really funny moment, and I actually wrote Drew, and I was like, dude, I don't know how after like a couple decades I might have missed this, but yeah, there's this what does he look like with facial hair kind of request. But what about this? I heard this coming. At least it was a rumor, and it's the Dusty Wheel. We love rumors. Don't get us wrong here. But this was one rumor I heard out there that they were going to cut the warders. Now, obviously, they just cast Lan, so one would think that that's not possible. Do any of you think there's any possibility that even though we'll have Lan, that warders won't play the role that they have played in the series, and they won't be, in other words, is there a chance that we have Lan, but we don't have all the other warders? Or do you think that Lan being here means that rumor is completely out the door, and everyone's gonna have all their warders, and it's all gonna be, hunky dory?
That's a great question.
I think that having Lan cast doesn't necessarily guarantee that we're gonna have warders in the show. No. But I do think that if they choose to cut warders, I mean, they're gonna have their work cut out for them, tying off some of the plot lines that leaves hanging, because the warder bond itself plays such a big deal in this series across all kinds of characters. Characters are. So you have Birgitta, you have Alana and Rand. You have Rand and his triple bond. You have obviously the dynamics of Morel and Nynaeve and Warren and how Lan is treated by each of them. And I mean, this is an important plot point,
Yeah.
Even the Reds, right? Like even towards the end of the series, like I know it's down the road, but that's a key point. I mean, Alana's warders are important. Varen's warders are important.
Yeah.
Swan's aren't.
Yeah, but there's the whole overthrow of Swan. That kind of centers around the warders, Yeah.
Yeah, but that could just as easily be like quote unquote palace guards for the White Tower, like there are ways to do things without the number of important warders is, I'd say, under 15.
It's an interesting question. I have a hard time believing they'll get, that they would, but again, they have to, right? They have to adapt this thing, and it can't just be that they have this never-ending budget for as many people as they want to put into this.
Frankly, I hope they skip all of the Alana Rand nonsense.
Yeah, that's
I don't see it as critical, and it's such a huge, like, unless they want to sort of undertake it in the concept of consent and talking about like how egregious it was. I don't see the point.
I mean, there's a point there, but I don't necessarily want to go too far down that road of, we certainly could break down that, but I think there's a point there with Varen involved with Alana and, by the way, we should probably stop and say, obviously, if you're watching the show, it's time. We're talking about the Wheel of Time. There's spoilers. We should put a little alert up on the screen, right? Like, if you didn't know, the Wheel of Time talk show has spoilers. And that being said, I think there might be some Varen Alana stuff where they could use that as a way to start kind of building not the case against Varen, but making people kind of wonder at her motivations. But yeah, no, Alana could be dropped for sure. But that question of cutting warders is, maybe this is like core. That it did have me wondering.
It's an easy cut.
I could never imagine cutting Lan, but he certainly, like you guys have said, he has clear importance to many other pieces of the show that don't necessarily relate directly to, the warder concept. Now, when you bring in New Spring and you bring in everything else, it would be really weird to cut them. So anyways, that was like one of those weird internet rumors. Look, it's not that we don't love rumors here. We do. It's just that was not one of my favorite. I heard that.
Not a favorite. Definitely
but I mean, I caught a lot of slack for saying they should be cutting the Forsaken down from 13 to like 5.
You should
time.
You should get slack for that. That's terrible.
Guys, it's TV. It is not a word for word rendition.
I'm not saying it has to, but I hate that idea.
What are you losing?
Look, 13 is an important number. And so
I'm not saying the number is not important. I'm saying it doesn't have to be 13 Forsaken.
Yeah. I hope... cut warders before you cut Forsaken.
Well, so on the topic
I'm not sure I totally agree with that statement, but let's go with it. What were you saying?
Yeah, so on the topic of warders here, unfortunately, I have to duck out here in a couple of minutes because I have a concert to get to. But I just want to bring up the idea of what we think about fan cloth. Do you think they're going to keep the warder cloaks?
Ooh, I hope they do.
This is a good question.
That's a great question, Drew. And maybe that's why we don't see so many.
No, I think you have to have it. That's such a key component. And that's.
Oh, Matt, you're going to be so sad when they start releasing these.
Look, I'm getting better. I've given up a lot of stuff that I cared about, but
what?
I don't know. I'll have to list it later.
Forsaken.
But yeah, fan cloth. No, you have to have the warder cloaks. It's what makes. Again, I guess if they cut warders, I guess you can cut those.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm less worried about that. But yeah, that's a great question. Drew, you came up with the question. What is your feeling? It sounds like you probably have an opinion about it.
I mean, my opinion is that I really, really want to see it on screen. I think the warder cloak is one of the early cool factors in the eye of the world that, at least for me, as a young man reading these books for the first time, when I got that first description of Lan's cloak, I was like, oh, heck yeah, that sounds awesome.
Yeah.
I want to be a warder.
And it was one of those early things to me that when the concept of seeing the Wheel of Time on a screen occurred to me first, it was one of the earliest things that I thought of. I want to see this. I want to see how this is done.
Yes. So. Yeah, that whole ability for him, like you were saying before, he doesn't necessarily, he's not the main character in some of those scenes, but he certainly is, especially when people don't know he's there. And that ability to kind of show up out of nowhere, I don't know, that, I get it, Tal. I'm not ready for them to drop a lot of the stuff. So, that would be, I know, that would be a bummer. But yeah, that one for me, I guess maybe 90% of the things I'm gonna want them to keep. So maybe that's the problem here, and that's actually going to be for anyone that's watching us right now. We are going to have next week. We're going to start covering the books from this perspective on our next live show on Wednesday. It's going to be this fun, like, we are going to adapt the Wheel of Time with you. It's going to be a love it, hate it, kill it, merge it, move it, add it, whatever. We're gonna ask you, and we're gonna ask the panel to decide scene by scene. How do we adapt this? What should stay and what should go? And this is where I think we're gonna get into a lot more arguments about this. And I think this is probably, from the writer's perspective, the hard thing, right? Adapting the books. What you keep and what you don't keep is an important piece. Now, before
somebody get in touch with Rafe, because he's going to want to watch this. It's going to be hell.
I doubt it.
Bye, Drew.
It's not going to influence it. Hey, Drew, you got to take off. Hey, thank you very much for being here, man. And, before you go, let me tell everybody, there's going to be a special event on Saturday afternoon, evening time. We're going to do these every once in a while. Drew and I are going to be talking all about his podcast, and then we're going to get really geeky on the Wheel of Time side. I mean, maybe this is already there, but we're going to take it up one more notch, and we're going to start talking about the Shadow Rising and the metaphysics of that. You know, we're going to go through the Age of Legends. We're going to be talking Terangrial. We're gonna have a lot of fun. I think you called it the Mirror World Travel Agency the last time we spoke about this, Drew. Yep. So
that's right.
If that sounds interesting to you, or you want to hear more about Drew's podcast, please do show up on Saturday. We'll be live there, and you can ask Drew questions if you have them, and then you can just hear us totally geek out on this stuff, which is ridiculous and fun.
So
hey,
great. And thanks for having me on, Matt.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much for coming on with us. And you know what? Like I said, we'll see you on Saturday.
Sounds good. Catch you later.
Gotcha. See ya. And by the way, now it's a good time to add a caller here. I'm gonna butcher this person's name. Sian Sonea. Well, maybe from Colorado. Let's bring our caller in. Hey, welcome to the Dusty Wheel. Is it Sian Sonea? Is that how you pronounce your name? Sansonea. Oh, well, thank you very much for joining us.
Yes.
Is there something that we were saying? Do you have a particular comment or question for us? You know, what was your opinion about Lan being cast, Daniel Henney being cast as Lan?
Well, I think it's fine. I don't really know anything about him. I was slightly disappointed that there was only one casting announcement, but the casting announcement we got, I have no problem with him. I think he appears to be physically the right type, so that doesn't bother me. As to the point of whether he's quote unquote buff enough to play Lan, I think that's perfectly fine, because I think for Lan it's much more important that he have agility to do all those sword forms and everything like that.
Exactly.
What about blue eyes?
Yes.
Yeah. How'd you feel? What's your opinion about the blue eyes? Yeah.
Well, to me, if it's something that can be done, it should be done, and it's a pretty simple matter to give an actor blue eyes. They can do it either digitally if the actor is not comfortable wearing contacts, or they can do like they did with Victoria on Masterpiece. They just gave Jenna Coleman blue contact lenses, and it didn't take me out of the character at all.
Yeah, see, there you go. I think that's if they can do it, they should do it.
Sure. But if it's a question of money, I would rather the money go to fan cloaks. Than eyes.
No, but you brought up a good point.
Well, if they're cheaping out on contacts,
fair enough. That's a fair point.
No, but you
wigs. The wigs really need to be high quality. Now that we're talking about it,
high quality wigs. That's what we want you to leave the show with thinking about.
Okay, you joke, but
absolutely.
Now, you brought up a good point. Agility. I think that's an important piece. That'll be interesting, and maybe. Not that every former basketball player has to be the most agile person in the world, but I mean, I wonder if some of his, athleticism is actually going to show up in that, that doing the sword forms and such. I think you're right there. That, to me, that agility and the sword forms is more important than he's super buff. I would still like him to be.
Yeah, because he has to move like the wind.
Yeah. No. Yeah. We hadn't brought that point up. That's a. Really
I did.
You brought up that he had to be moved like the wind? You didn't say that.
I said physicality and basketball and good athletes and stuff.
Yeah. I'm just saying, move like the wind you should have said move like the wind. That's all I'm saying.
Cat crosses the courtyard. That's what I want to see.
Cat crosses the courtyard. Well, by the way, thank you very much for watching the show and for coming on, having the courage to call in and you were the first caller tonight. That was amazing. It's fun. I don't know. This is for me and for the rest of us. It's a lot of fun to have people just around the country and around the world, chime in. Is there anything else that was kind of on your mind about the casting itself?
Well, actually, I have to weigh in on the issue of cutting the Forsaken. I am against cutting any of them.
Yes. See?
Well, to me, each of them fulfills an important role in the story. And even if they aren't ever, the focus, like Belal, he exists only to show that Moiraine knows what she's doing. So you can't cut Belal, even though he has no screen time. And Agenor and Balsamel, they're important so that they can be killed. And you can't combine Grendel with anyone, and you can't combine Lanfear with anyone.
No.
So it's so it doesn't make sense to just cut them for the sake of having a lower number of them. Because I think the high number of them makes them more mysterious and menacing and foreboding.
Yeah, so
or red shirts.
This is an important point, and this is why you should definitely come back with us next Wednesday. I don't know if you heard before you got on the call. We're going to be covering scene by scene of the first book, and this is going to come up, the question of whether or not we do this with the Forsaken. Who do we cut? Who can we not cut? Because at some point they do have to adapt it. But no, I appreciate you bringing up the point. I appreciate that opinion because it agrees with mine. I still appreciate the opinions that don't, but I agree with you that I really hope that they keep the 13 Forsaken. Whether or not they want to use a metaphysical way of cutting some of them out, like maybe some of them are still in the bore, I guess you could do. But I really hope that they stick with the 13. So, by the way, thank you very much for calling. I hope you'll continue watching with us, and I hope you'll call back next week.
Absolutely.
And I have to let you go. We just have another caller on the line, but thank you again for calling. And I guess, like I said, being our first caller and having the courage to share your opinion. And like I said, hope to see you next week at the Dusty Wheel.
You certainly will.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Now we have another caller, and I wanted to get him in. He is calling from Sweden. So welcome to the Dusty Wheel, Rick from Sweden. How are you doing?
Hi, I'm good, thanks. It's about 3 a.m. here, so I'm doing good. But how you doing?
Excellent. Thank you so much for staying up for this, man. I jokingly thought about doing a late night version of this where we cover Lanfear and Tel'aran'rhiod because it's the World of Dreams, and try to do that show at 3 a.m. our time, so you won't, so everyone else in the world will be awake for that. But thank you very much for calling in, Rick. Did you have a comment on Lan and who was cast as Lan and any of the discussion that we had today?
Yeah, I thought actually I always imagine him as his nation, and I thought it was a good idea. And seriously, I'm in the same time zone as they are right now,
Oh,
when
yeah,
they're
that's right.
doing this.
Yeah, right.
But the thing with the Forsaken and the Warders, they're not this big part of this, really. They're just in the background, but they are a big, an important part of it. So I don't think they should cut the Warders.
Yeah, that's a good point. They don't have to necessarily have tons of warders, but they could, like you're saying, we could go down the road of not actually having too many of them. So don't cut them, but just don't have too many of them. I like that idea. So from a budget standpoint, that still works, and I agree. What did you think about when it came to all the different characteristics, physical attributes of Lan? Do you believe they need to that Lan needs to be extremely buff and kind of needs to fit the blue eye look, or is that just not really important to you as a fan?
I mean, the blue-eyed look could be the brown-eyed look, as long as there's a look. But as long as he's really imposing on the rest of the characters, and again, I've been watching this thing, but as long as Perrin is a little bit broader than he is, he's not too buff, I think, when I read the books. But he's cat-like, though he's big. So it's not, the blue-eyed look could be a brown-eyed look.
Okay, yeah, and I think that's kind of where we've all come down, which is, maybe we'd like him to be a little bit buffer or not, but I think the agility side of this and the cat-like, like you brought up, is definitely going to be the more important piece of that. Perrin, I certainly want to see buffer, but I guess we'll see how that turns out. But did you have were there anything else have any other comments about the stuff we've been talking about today, or any other questions you had for the panel?
Not really. I just think they've done a good casting choice so far.
Okay.
Except, Perrin needs to buff up, but otherwise I love Daniel as Lan. It's just how I envision him, and the Borderland people as a whole. So I think it's a good look, and like I said, not the blue-eyed hair doesn't need to be a blue-eyed hair.
Okay.
Ha!
No, yeah. Tal, you got somebody with you.
That's
hey,
one.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, Rick, thank you very much for calling. Thank you for staying up and listening to us live. That's really cool. It means a lot to us that you did that, and for calling in. Sorry you had to call the long distance number there. We'll try to make that a little bit less expensive for anyone calling us from so far away. But we hope that you'll come back. Jump on with us next week when we start breaking down the book scene by scene. It's gonna be a lot of fun. I appreciate you giving us a call, and hopefully we'll talk to you again soon.
Definitely. Love you guys.
Hey,
Bye.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye. Have a good night in Sweden.
Okay, so our next, by the way, that was totally cool. Rick, thank you so
It was
much.
super cool. I was
Yeah,
like,
it
do we
was.
know him?
I know. I was like, and he said 3 a.m. That is fandom right there. I love that. Thank you, Rick. That was awesome. Now we have another caller. This one is Nick from Florida. Nick, you're on the air. Welcome to the Dusty Wheel.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
And thanks for doing this podcast. It's awesome.
Yeah, it's fun, right? I mean, this is one of those. I don't know. It struck me as a lot of fun. The idea of actually talking to my friends live and being live streamed, right? So, what were your thoughts on Daniel Henney being cast as Lan?
I know of him from Criminal Minds, so I'm really happy he's great on Criminal Minds, and I think he'll make a perfect Lan.
Is he what you envisioned? Like, is this kind of a, for everyone has obviously a different picture in their mind, but did he match up to kind of what you thought he was going to be?
No, honestly, I thought, like, I always read it. I've read the book series at least 5-6 times, like the entire way through. So I've always considered Lan to be like an older person, an older like uncle figure to Rand.
Sure.
And the new spring prologue gave me the idea that Lan was like much older in the way he carried himself, and like the stuff that he had to do before he became the Warder, and like the way that that Moraine like put ants in his bed, and he responded by dunking her in the water. And then he put up all the blankets to make sure that her modesty was protected, things like that. He always struck me as an older character, but I think that it'll work out.
Yeah.
I'm very interested to see the Lan and Naeem dynamics.
Yeah. So you're bringing us back to kind of our earlier conversation, which I think is true, which that you brought this idea of this uncle kind of figure, which, I felt that too, reading the books. I think that Daniel can still pull that off. I don't think he has to necessarily be 50 years old or something to be able to do that. But I think you're right. We're going to want to see that. And I think that Daniel can do it, but we're going to want to see that interaction pulled off really well between, Rand and Daniel. And what is good, and maybe that always was, Rand was always as tall as. Oh yeah, sorry, Chris just joined us here, so we'll get you in. We'll get you in here shortly, Chris. But 1 second. Sure. So yeah, I think that what you brought up, Nick, was really important. Was this idea of the kind of the uncle figure? Did you have a particular reaction to him being too pretty? Was he too pretty in that kind of aging perspective to you, or did that just kind of work all together within the whole idea of him? You thought he was going to be older, so piece. That kind of
I think it actually works because like Naeem, she falls for him immediately. Like you can tell if you on the rereads. Yeah. She absolutely. And so I wonder, what is it that she saw in him? And I think her first impression is twofold. Is always like, this guy is so awesome, but also this guy is so good looking. So I think it's twofold. I don't think that because I think that like Lan carries himself like a king. Yeah. And no matter how much he tries to disguise it, Lan carries himself as a king through the entire books. You see that near the end of the series when he's trying to hide and he's trying to pretend he's a merchant, and nobody, not a single person he meets on the road to the Gap, believes that he's a merchant. Everybody's like, no, you're the king. So like, absolutely. So you can go ahead.
No, I was gonna say you're bringing up a really good point. The relationship, we haven't talked about his relationship with Nynaeve just yet, and that I think there is a certain element of beyond the fact that he's kind of this really dangerous, immature dude that happens to also be, in this case, really good looking. But I think there is that kind of attraction piece that I don't know how much the fans would have bought into it if it was too dramatic of an aged gap. I mean, Tal, do you think that, if they had used Ken Watanabe, I'm butchering his name.
Wanatabe.
I'll practice that before our next discussion. Do you think if they picked him, it would have been less believable from that relationship standpoint?
No, man. Do people like, what about Michael Douglas and Catherine Zeta-Jones 20 years ago? Like, nobody said boo. It's fine.
Yeah. You think no one said boo? Look,
you were just jealous, Chris. It's fine.
Absolutely.
When Michael Douglas watches this, I'm not trying to be offensive. I did wonder at that one. Don't be surprised. Well, Nick, is there any other comments, questions you have for the panel?
Yeah, I was just curious about what everybody's favorite moment in the book series was. I know it's like hard to pick one moment. Mine is when Naeem heals when she heals the stealing and the gentling, and then when she heals the madness. Yeah, that's
a good question.
I love this question.
This is a hard question, and by the way, this is a great moment for us to introduce Chris Cottingham. Welcome to the show, man.
Thanks. It's good to be here.
Yeah, sorry, appreciate you being here. No worries. We just lost Drew, and Chris is another,
superior substitute.
Superior substitute.
Drew, not me.
It'll be a nice little Twitter conversation between you two tomorrow. Welcome, Chris. Chris is another person I met at JordanCon. He's a great guy, and I definitely think of him as a Theorylander deep down inside of his heart. And that has a lot to do with the fact that I always ask him onto the trivia team for Theorylanders because I want to win. So I appreciate that about you, Chris. Why don't we? I know we have another caller online, but let's quickly run through that really quick. Answer Nick's question. Tal, do you have something that's coming to mind as a favorite scene?
I super do.
Okay.
Rand's trip through the pillars in Ruidian is my favorite moment of the whole series. Yeah. Followed closely by the story that Rand hears from Mullane in The Waste about his mother.
Did you just give us two? You're not allowed to give us two. Don't give us two. Yeah, those are. Oh, this is such a hard question. Todd, do you have?
If she gets to have two, I get to have two.
Yeah.
I like Moraine's story about King Aemon in Emond's Field. That's one of my favorites. And then when Lan says, "I'm not here to win. I'm here to kill you." That's I don't remember the exact quote, but it's something to that.
Okay, and Chris, this will be your. What's favorite scene? I guess apparently you can pick two.
Shut up.
Well, between them, they had 4, so I should get 4. So that's an impossible question. I will say Moraine telling the story of Manetheren is definitely one for me. there are lots of others, but I will pick from Nynaeve being raised to Aes Sedai when she decides to save Lan instead of follow the rules of the Aes Sedai. Just that moment where she says, "Forget the rules of the test." That she cares more about that and about serving people than she does the rules is a great moment.
Okay, this is like everyone has said here, impossible question. But the Varen
Not
reveal.
for you. Varen.
Everybody that knows me knows it's an impossible question. Varen.
Lanfear.
Well, look, the Varen reveal to me probably trumps any Lanfear moment. Because in that moment I jumped out of my chair and kind of pumped my arm in the air at 3:00 in the morning. So. Well, hey, Nick, thank you very much for being with us. Thank you for being a viewer. I hope you show back up. If Saturday, if the geeking out over metaphysics and the Shadow Rising interests you, please show up then, or show up next week when we discuss, like I said to everyone, when we actually start discussing the books scene by scene and we adapt them together. That's going to be a lot of fun. Hey, I appreciate you calling.
Yeah, I definitely plan to call in next Wednesday. I'll see about Saturday as my schedule permits.
Awesome. Hey, thanks
Nick, for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Hey, goodbye. So we have 2 more callers on, and I just want to remind everybody, it's 1-313-825-5968. 1-313-825-5968 if you'd like to call and give your opinion. Let's bring our next caller in with us. This is Lancer from California. Hey, welcome to the Wheel of Time. Welcome to the Dusty Wheel.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. So what's your reaction
I
to
just wanted
this? Yeah, go for it.
I just wanted to say, you know what? I am happy with Daniel Henney being Lan in this. I like this. I like the multi-ethnic cast. I think that it will make the show much better and much more distinct than Game of Thrones, because there's going to be that inevitable comparison to that show.
Absolutely.
And even though people will compare it to, even though most of us in the Wheel of Time circle know that these books came before Game of Thrones, and also Game of Thrones ripped many of the concepts out of Wheel of Time and used them in Game of Thrones. So when we see them on screen, and there's going to be those people who are going to be, hey, that was on Game of Thrones. Why are you doing this in Wheel of Time? That's just not right. It's just ripping it off. We're going to be sitting there going, wrong. So it's just one of those things that I am definitely looking forward to on screen and seeing if there's going to be some sort of good chemistry between all of the actors and such. But I am to answer what everyone's been saying about the best scene, and I'm surprised no one has said this. I have read this scene probably 4 or 5 times over, and that's the best chapter in the world, and that's chapter 40 of I believe it was The Towers of Midnight, of Forging. And let's just say when Perrin makes Ma'alanir for the very first time, and just the reaction of everyone around, of having the forge fire glowing around Perrin's golden eyes, and the look of awe on everyone watching him forge this, basically, if you know D&D, a Goliath great hammer, it just being forged before their eyes, and wise woman, circle now, and it's just pure epicness right there, and I just cannot wait until he just rolls with Ma'alanir going on Stepper, and just rolling down that hill, and watching the White Cloaks look at this fool like, there's this beast on top of a beast carrying this huge hammer. Oh snap! And he's not coming at us; he's rolling through the Trollocs.
Well,
that's gonna be epic.
I can tell you're my kind of fan because I can find myself talking about these type of scenes well into the morning, and I guess we're doing the show at the Dusty Wheel. Like, that is the passion that you're talking about is really appreciated. I'm glad that you were able to share kind of your opinion about Lan. That's an interesting. I haven't seen. it's I don't know, maybe it's been like a 70-30 and 80-20 thing with fans where it's like the cast is making a lot of sense to them and sometimes it's not. But one piece that you brought up, I think that was one of the things that Jordan did well, which was there was always this mixed ethnicity everywhere. Even the Shanshan, when they came in, they were of every kind and color. This idea that there's some, that he was very specific about the homogenous groups and very specific about those. Otherwise, everyone was kind of mixed together. So I really appreciate you jumping in. I mean, everyone that's kind of jumped online and today and given us their opinions, we really appreciate that. Is there any parting comments or questions you had for the panelists, Lancer?
I just wanted to, this is my first time listening to y'all, so I'm glad I caught this for the first time. I would like to know, what are your thoughts on, hopefully the chemistry and the makeup, and I did, pun intended, the makeup of the Emmons Field 5, and with Moraine and Lan being the makeup that they all are. And if you guys could care to comment on that, and I'll just sit back and listen to y'all. Great show. Thanks for letting me on.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, thank you. We'll please do call again. We appreciate and I think let's cover that question. And I think that was one of the important pieces of the message, the announcement 3 weeks ago, was there was a lot of questions about the Edmonds 5 and, did they fit into this idea of what we imagined the Edmonds 5 would be? And I think, at least for me personally, when I started doing research about it, the headcanon that I had in my head about the look, if you will, of the Edmonds 5 was absolutely not what was in the books, and that that really made me happy because I was able to quickly kind of just like, oh, I never actually read the details on those pieces. So did anyone else have any reaction to 3 weeks ago that they want to share in regards to Edmonds 5?
Yeah,
my biggest thing with them is that they've known each other. They've known each other since they were children, so they have to be able to work together like they've known each other their whole life. So if they can make that work and then work in with Lan and Moraine, I think it should be fine.
Yeah, I like that. I like that opinion. Is the cohesiveness between the 5 is really important, and I hope to see that on screen. That's a really good point. Chris, you were going to say something.
Yeah, I mean, as far as the chemistry of them, it's one of those things that we won't know until we see it, whether or not they have that chemistry. But there are things about each of the actors that they have cast that, and statements that have been made about them that make it seem to me like the thing is paying a lot of attention to getting the spirit of the characters right. And so I'm hopeful that means that they're paying attention to that chemistry between them. And, it's things like Madeline that's playing Egwene, addressing her country, addressing Australia on behalf of the Aboriginal people of Australia at the age of 13. I mean, that's a very Egwene sort of thing to do.
Right.
That precocious and that and putting yourself forward in that way. I know Rafe and Sarah Nakamura and others have been saying that that Barney just is Matt, that he has those qualities. So I hope that will be true of the cast as a whole, that they'll have that cohesiveness, because those tight bonds where they can fight with each other and get on each other's nerves and absolutely be there for each other when when danger comes or when anybody else attacks them, they immediately switch from attacking each other to standing up for each other. Those kinds of moments throughout the series are hopefully what we will get from them.
Yeah, for sure. We have another caller. Let's bring him in. I think we might know this. Let's see. This is Ted from New York.
Ted!
Is this? I don't know if somebody has. Hey, is this Ted? Is this the Ted we all know and love?
Yes, it is. No, I guess it was a little on delay.
Yeah, it's okay. There was a little delay there. I was like, maybe it's not.
BFFs, how you doing?
Hi!
Well, Ted, welcome to the show.
Hi, Del.
So what's your opinion of the casting announcement today?
I thought it was pretty good. To me, the physical characteristics like eye color and that, it's less important than the actual bearing, how Lan carries himself. He's got to be like more regal, like was mentioned, jaded a bit, good swordsman, royalty. When I pictured Lan for the casting, I was thinking of Alex Malari from Dark Matter.
Alex Malari.
Have any of you seen that?
No.
Yeah,
I've seen Dark Matter.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, so Dark Matter.
Yeah, I can see it.
He was a swordsman on there, and it turned out that he was basically an emperor, and he carried this menacing bearing also. And I think Lan definitely, that would be one of his characteristics.
Oh, he's good too. Can we have him as well?
I think this is one of those cases, right? He was 5'10". I swear I think they were probably at the very least trying to match Lan with Rand, who they picked.
Matt,
Look,
like apple boxes are a thing.
I'm sorry, they weren't going to pick a 5'7" actor for Lan. They just weren't. So,
dude, have you seen, that Tom Cruise is the shortest of the short guys, right?
I get it. They just were not going to do it. You can say that they were, but they didn't, is my point.
I'm just saying there are not a lot of tall actors in Hollywood.
Look, I get it.
If they can't afford blue contacts, they can't afford soapboxes, okay?
I mean, they could do...
And sorry, Tal.
They could do all the camera tricks.
I don't think that he should be pretty.
I didn't say pretty.
Well, I think he should look a little bit maybe older pretty, but not youngish pretty. That would just
he
throw
should
it off.
definitely look a little crusty. Like there should be something there.
That's another phrase: oldish pretty and youngish pretty. Hopefully, people take that away and start talking about that. Chris, what were you going to say about that?
I have no idea. I don't remember. No. Oh, yes. So yeah, they can do all the camera tricks to make somebody look taller, but we probably won't get 14 seasons, but 5 or 7 seasons might be nice. I don't know. However long the show is, that's a long time to keep up all of those camera tricks. So,
yep. You're right. You're right in the end, Tal. They could have done things differently. They didn't. And maybe the 5'10" thing is not a big deal. But all I'm saying is at some point, the details do matter. And they weren't going to go too far away from them is my thinking on that. Ted, any other? So you went down the too pretty. Was there anything else that we had kind of chatted about that you weren't too happy about?
Well, I did a quick search on Dairyland for muscular characters, and he was not muscular, or not listed as it anyway. The main muscular characters are the blacksmith, the Aiel, and the sailors.
No, man, he's live. Let's go with live.
He was more muscular.
Exactly.
They talk about him as more heavily muscled or muscular than Rand.
Not as broad-shouldered, but more heavily muscled.
Right. So you're right. As a comparison piece, as it compares to Rand, right? So in the end of the day, a lot of these things are kind of comparative, and they're very limited, point of views of how people are in the viewpoint are actually describing other people, right? There's that piece to it too. Right, these things aren't kind of from an omniscient standpoint or viewpoint often. So, certainly, whoever that view of him being more heavily muscled than Rand doesn't necessarily mean he's like huge. And I'll give you that for sure.
Well, like Tal said, I think he would work as being live, able to do his fight sequences, for example.
Yeah. Is there any other piece? And while you're here, while we have you, before we let you go, what was your favorite scene? Favorite scene from all the Wheel of Time?
The one that gets me every time I reread, like right in the gut, it's the Golden Crane flies for Tarmangad.
Yeah.
Good pick. I want to take that pick now.
Anyone else want to? No, I'm still in Varen.
I'm sure a lot of people agree. And Lan is one of my favorite characters, so I think they did very well with this casting. I think it was one of the ones I was looking towards more, even than the Emmons Fielders.
Yeah, no, I there was some one of the callers brought up the idea that we were kind of expecting more casting announcements. I would have loved to have gotten more, but there is something kind of cool about Lan being announced by himself. Like, in other words, like the whole focus was on him today. All the fans were talking about it, and there was something really, at least for me, after my initial shock of like, hey, wait, I want to know who's going to play Tom, who's going to play Fane, who's going to play like, Min, and all these other people. I realized like, oh wow, I've been really focused on Lan today, and that was, at least for me, I'm not saying they did it on purpose. I'm just saying, in the end, I was like, it was cool to kind of just be focused on Lan and talk about him. Well, Ted,
I think it would be cool if they did that on purpose. Because what did the Aiel call him?
Man alone.
And a line.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I'm not begrudging the fact that they did just that. I know they're really busy right now, probably getting things set up. So maybe it was a mix of both. But certainly him having his own day and Moraine having her own day, it does show how important those characters are from a focus standpoint. So, Ted, we're gonna let you go. We're actually the show. We're gonna wrap up the show. But hey, thanks you very much for calling in, and I hope to see you sooner rather than later, which next year, and then also,
and thank you for having the show.
Absolutely, it's fun, right?
An awesome concept, man.
Yeah, it's fun, and hopefully you'll jump
great
in with
seeing
us.
all my seeing all my Theorylanders and Jordan Connors there, Chris.
Bye, buddy.
Hey,
nice to hear your voice.
Hey, man.
Talk to you later.
Show up on Saturday
Later, Ted.
and come chat with us about The Shadow Rising. Hey, we'll talk to you soon.
Sorry about the Mets.
Hey, guys. Well, to the three of you, thank you very much for being here. Please stick around. I want you guys to stick around afterwards. We'll do a little after show. It won't be live to those that are viewing. We're just going to answer some questions. We're going to talk a little bit more in detail about some things that came up. Answer any questions you have in YouTube or you've thrown us from social media, and do a little kind of after show thing that we can post tomorrow and let you know what we thought of the show itself. But so don't hang up. But to everyone else that came and viewed the show today, I hope you enjoyed it. Even though Tal was wrong most of the time. And
she usually is.
I'll win. You see, we're gonna air, and they're not. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I'll get into the comments and be like, we agree with Tal.
I'm on that side.
You're on that side. Okay. So no, but thank you for coming out. Show up next Wednesday. We'll be back here right around the same time. We might push the time a little bit. Go to our social media accounts. Subscribe to the channel. It's fun. We'll do more of these things. We might even jump into the kind of pre-recorded segments, as we have time. And again, hopefully more of you will get the courage. Just give us a call. And thank you very much to those who did, especially Rick calling from Sweden, man. That was freaking amazing.
Yeah,
Chris,
that was really cool. Yeah.
You weren't here. I don't know if you were listening to it, Chris, at all, but yeah, we had someone calling from Sweden at 3 a.m. It was amazing.
Insomnia pays off.
That is awesome.
Well, and again, hopefully you'll come back and see us at the Dusty Wheel. Thanks, everyone. Good night.
Bye.